So yeah, let's get right into it. So of course, forbidden cards, Auroradon, Meow Meow Mew, and Verte Anaconda. What do we think about this section?
Start with Auroradon. Good hit. Had problematic typing and link material requirements because Halka is, still legal. Extra deck extenders, that powerful, generally problematic over the game's history. Card just did way too much, was way too abusable, so I'm glad it's gone.
Yeah, from my opinion, Auroradon is about the same. I think they should have banned Hulk because that card's just nuts.
Yeah.
But Auroradon is it's a neuter to Sword Soul, so that's okay for me.
I consider the Auroradon hit like a proxy hit for Fibrax. Again, Fibrax should have just been hit altogether, but I guess they love that card that much and don't want it just gone for now, or at least for the NAWCQ season. Maybe they want to see, maybe Japan wants it to be seen in TCG regions for one nationals. That may be, inside corporate thing that they want for that card. Yeah, I think that card should have been hit instead. But once Fibrax gets hit, I feel like Auroradon can come back.
Yeah,
well, I feel like most of the tutors can come back.
Hopefully, yeah. There's a question of how achievable Auroradon plays would be with like Fibrax gone. Obviously, it's nowhere near as free.
Yeah.
We do have generic machine links. Barricade Borg Blocker is 2/3 of an Auroradon. So, like, not that Fiber is acceptable, but Auroradon just had like a lot of potential to be abused. So, yeah, won't miss it.
Yeah, I don't know. We may see it come back one day, but Meow, I think is fine. That, or like we said, Doodle to 1 could have been hit, but honestly, just putting this deck back to 2018 is fine. Like, it was just obnoxious to see it for the last 5 months.
Yeah, I played it a local one time before it got banned, and I split the finals, whatever. But I was like, yo, this thing is getting banned. I gotta play this once.
Yeah, Meow's pretty incredible. Like, the fact that it even had any upside for a deck that was just begging for a Link 1 to bust it wide open.
Yeah.
It worked so well with the Adventurer cards, the Brave cards, that because they didn't touch that, it makes sense that this has happened here, because it's so good, so hard to stop.
Yeah. I feel like they could have hit Adventure stuff and then kept this at 1. But again, I feel like this is kind of a proxy hit for Adventure stuff just right now to push out Prime Kids out of the meta and then push in the new cards like Branded Despia. And
this
of course,
definitely
Darions.
100% a new cards push. This list, there's 3 Link monsters banned. They made Links considerably weaker going forward from here. Yeah. And Meow being legal, even if you're not doing Prank Kid stuff, is just like a lot of Link material coming off of just any Prank Kid.
Yeah. Yep. And then, of course, Verte Anaconda. I've never liked this card since it was revealed. Only card that was abusing it, though, was DP, of course. And I guess, I don't know if it's necessarily a proxy hit, though, because I feel like Verte shouldn't have been printed. I'm glad to see it go, though.
Yeah, truthfully, I think Verte is a crazy card. I think fusion cards need to stop sending from the deck. That's the real problem. I don't think Verte was as bad if those cards didn't do that, but rest in peace to the Predator players that want to play that.
Plants or dark plant fusion, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, another thing. 2 of the 3 cards on this list are from Link Frames pack releases. They just continue to show that the push that they gave those cards is pretty incredible. Verte could have just taken Predaplant cards, would have been fine. But yeah, this was just so insanely generic, really homogenized gameplay around whatever the most powerful send from deck fusion was. Another card I won't miss, just any 2 monsters being a threat as powerful as DPE or Dragoon, or really anything you can summon off of it, Mirror Jade.
Especially after you get interrupted and you're like, hey, by the way, I have DPE now, and then I have follow-up for every single turn until you can finally remove it or until you're dead.
And don't forget my boy Rainbow Neos, bro. Don't forget Rainbow Neos.
True.
Yeah, it has been the backup proactive game plan for so long that people adjusting to it is going to be interesting. Like, being stopped is going to matter a lot more because the bodies just don't become this.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I agree. And they were missing, of course, Scythe. I think that was the number one thing. Personally, I think DP is like more tolerable because Verte isn't in the game anymore. But they definitely missed Scythe. Because there are still, if you guys have seen Shift Gaming's video, there have been a bunch of people testing with Perform Pals, and we'll talk about the reason why later, but it's just Scythe Turbo. You can turbo out Fibrax plus Dagda, and then that gets you to Scythe Wonder Magician. That's the whole play.
Yeah, the Wonder Magician is they should definitely missed there. Unfortunately, Dagda's another Link Frames pack card, just way too easy to make, way too abusable, and I am sad that they missed that. My other big miss for them was Mystic Mine. This Banlist really seemed like a love letter to branded Despia because it hit a lot of the cards that deck was going to have to compete against, and none of their cards, I believe. They're still 3 Super Poly, but Mystic Mine remaining just a card that their engine straight loses to. I was very surprised that remained legal at 3 copies.
To be honest, I'm not a fan of the Despia deck, so Mystic Mine's going in my deck, so...
that's fair. Although I could see it being hit later on, but at least for right now, it's going to be like 2019 again, when that card made its real breakout appearance.
It's just unfortunate. Any deck out win condition that isn't like, like we don't have Mr. Rune yet, we don't have to deal with that yet, but it's just... The things it does to gameplay, it's so disruptive to how games play out that I'm very surprised it's still legal.
Yeah. And also, a lot of people talk about the psychological aspect of it, where you're like, oh, what if they're playing Mystic Mine? I have to play around that card, and that lowers my consistency. Like, it's just difficult to play around. And I'd say, yeah, I agree. Alrighty, so we're gonna go on to limited. Jet Synchron, Red Rose Dragon, Yatagarasu, Fibrax, Monkey Board, Shooting Riser, Change of Heart, and Time Seal. So this is the first time in like 18 years that Yatagarasu has been legal. It was one of the first banned cards. It was so the first ban list that came out that actually banned cards. Up until then, it was only limiting cards or semi-limiting cards. Yatagarasu was one of the first cards banned ever in the game, and it is finally legal again because it's just how the game is now. It's just too fast to where
Yatagarasu's
effect just doesn't matter anymore.
That is hilarious. Like, historically, that's hilarious. Yeah. Totally irrelevant to the competitive game. Yeah. But I'm glad. Like, in terms of maintenance of the game, cleaning up the ban list, something they should do a little more aggressively. There was no reason for Yata to have been there that long. Time Seal's another case.
And I bring that up because, personally, I've been watching a lot of, like, historical Yugioh videos and archives and everything. Change of Heart is another one, and Time Seal. Those are all banned around the same time, and they have never been legal since. So, like, Snatch Steal was one of the originals as well that functions like Change of Heart. But honestly, Change of Heart, if you're going to bring it back, you might as well have brought Mind Control back instead. Like, they're the same thing. I don't know why Mind Control is still at 1, and now Change of Heart is at 1. That was one of the confusing things. I don't think they're going to do a whole lot, considering the current format, and, like, Time Seal as well. I don't see it really doing that much.
Okay, Time Seal, buns. Change of Heart, I'm so glad that is off the list, because I have a Legendary Collection Yu-Gi-Oh! World one sitting on my shelf at home, and it just jumped up to like $70, and I'm rich now, so thank you, Konami.
Like, I love the card art. Like, I like the card. I don't care that it's in the game, because it's literally the same thing as Mind Control in this case, because, the game's just beyond a point where you're attacking with really the card you target with Change of Heart.
Zero restrictions is pretty incredible. I guess the last thing would be no attacking, no tributing. These are very quasi-relevant parts of Mind Control, but it is just like free range, just your opponent's monster becomes yours. Yeah, I was quite surprised they did this. Like you said, it's weird that we have one Mind Control and one of this. They've done this in the past, though. We had one Dark Hole and one Regeki for the longest time.
That's true. Although, I think the Dark Hole thing in Regeki was... The Dark Hole was because it was Zoo format, and they would take advantage of Ram. I think that was the main thing. I'm not sure what their angle is here, but nice to see, I guess, Change of Heart back. Like I said, I love the card art. Eventually, we'll have a series of like evaluating card art. I love the old school art a bunch. I like seeing the cards back, but not for their competitive value. Completely separated from the two worlds.
Yep.
Yeah, Change of Heart's one of my coolest starts, so.
For sure. It's also, it aligns with a trend that's been going on ever since Rise of the Duelist was the big one. A lot of the cards they've imprinted, the generic power cards, have been reactive instead of proactive. What I mean by that is that they're not like that Grasslix Arena or Soul Charge. They're like Droplet and Talents and Change of Heart now. So a lot more cards to make games more playable for the player who's going second. This one's quite a push, though. It's a hell of a card.
Same with like the previous list putting Regeki to 3. Like, that card hasn't been legal at 3 in, again, like 18 years.
Yep.
Before then. But Jet Synchron, Red Rose Dragon, Fibrax, and Shooting Riser, they're kind of all categorized together. They're all part of the Synchro stuff, Adventure Synchro. Fibrax, I know not a lot of decks are playing at more than one. Sword Soul was for a little bit, but not now. No one was playing Shooting Riser at more than one, so I'm not sure if that was just an OCG fear. I know they had an issue with it. I don't remember if it went to one at one point, but I know there were some decks that were playing 2 Riser. And then Jet Synchron. I'm glad to see that card back. I love that card a bunch. Unfortunate that we had to trade a Rordon for it. And Red Rose Dragon kind of just exists as, I think, a proxy hit to Adventure. That's how it is.
Yeah, I feel like I can get behind most of that.
Red Rose being drawn less is going to be pretty important because there's still there's still the 3 right and 3 Aqua Water Enchantress. So right plus Red Rose is would have been one of the most incredibly powerful things remaining if there was still 3 Red Rose. So we see that curtailed a bit. Now you have to resolve your Hulk or something to get to the Red Rose, which makes the deck a little more playable against. Jet coming back is nice, a little more variety in the game.
I'm glad to never have to play stupid Despot 001 again. I hate playing that card. I'm okay with Jet
bro, you're not
Synchron.
playing pure Despots?
Nah, bro. I couldn't.
Hulk to 1 shuts down some of the turn 3s of the dedicated Synchro decks. That's fine. Riser to 1 is very strange. I don't know if there was potential abuse going on. I mean, it is an incredible card, but maybe there was something they were worried about something that could happen with using 1 on your turn to send and then make Link or Synchro into a Hulk and then tag out to another 1 to quick Synchro.
Yeah,
Not entirely sure
what they were
but
thinking there. Yeah, but and
then make a big difference.
Yeah, I don't think that'll do too much. I know a lot of the newer decks that are like P.U.N.K is playing Shooting Riser, but they don't play the 2. So we'll still see it played. I just don't think it'll be an issue. So it seems kind of just like a random hit. Again, maybe just from Konami of Japan's input, forcing us to play just the 1. And then last but not least, Monkey Board. This card has not been legal for almost 6.5 years. 6 years. Banned in February of 2016. It's been a hot minute. I'm glad to see this card back. I don't care for pendulums, but Perform Pals are the coolest pendulums out there.
Hear me out. 1 card pendulum summon?
Yeah. Apparently, people were still scared of that, but you're playing not bad cards, but just like compared to like the Magician stuff from 2017 into 2018 with Electromite, they do significantly less. But now they are, like I said, the Artifact Scythe Dagda and 1 Magician Turbo deck. That's the whole idea.
My boy Monkey Board is free. That is all that matters.
No, it's nice to see that Joker's at 3, Monkey Board's at 1. I could see next list like Plush Fire to 1 too. That may happen. I don't know if it will, but we did see Monkey Board, and that was something that Nick and I talked about in a previous Banlist predictions video, that Monkey Board could come back to at least 1.
Shout out my boy Steve and his pendulum deck.
Yeah, I'm glad to see. Well, I'm excited to see what people play with Perform Pals because there have been so many printed since then, and a bunch of ones that are really good, but only if Monkey Board is legal or they have their full consistency, which now they almost do.
Yeah, so this came about because there's Performer Pal cards in Dimension Force. Personally not a fan of this one. I think the pendulum mechanic is extraordinarily difficult to balance. Obviously, they have some standouts like Electromite's never coming back. That's fine. This is just... Pendulum gets very dangerous when its cards are efficient, so Joker being a +1 and Monkey Board being 1 card completed scales is pretty incredible. You were talking about the Fiber Dagda stuff. Deck makes it very easy to just achieve the abundance of bodies needed to... just abuse whatever easy to summon monsters are in the extra deck. They could solve that by being more proactive with, cards like Scythe that we already talked about, but they haven't. So my worry is that this is usually just used for something ignorant that doesn't really involve a lot of gameplay on your opponent's behalf, but we'll see what happens with it.
Yep. That is the limited section, so on to semi-limited. Dynamite Knight, the Chew Draco Fighter, Cyber Angel Benton, Fire Formation Tenki, Desires, Light Stage, and Wall of Revealing Light. Irrelevant cards that are coming back, Dynamite Knight and Wall of Revealing Light. I don't think those really matter too much. Dynamite Knight doesn't matter because Diagram is still at 1, Masterpiece is still banned. I think it's fine. That's whatever.
Did it for the Master Duel Draco players, bro.
Maybe. I know Konami of Japan is they're the ones managing the ban list for that, but yeah. Cyber Angel Benton coming back to 2 is really interesting. I'm not sure why, but it may have been for Libromancers. I don't know.
In my mind, I think it's to make Drytron stronger.
Yeah, they didn't want to just not leaving Drytron in the dirt for all the people who, put their time and money into that. Which is probably fine. Drytron without Ava filling the hand with fairies is generally a much more interactive type of deck. Dretron always had this problem where it had so much power in that its cards are activatable in the graveyard, and then when Ava and the fairies are all legal and at high numbers, they had infinite hand advantage for the Herald, whatever Herald they summon to negate your opponent's cards. Lacking one of those, maybe this is just a push to let the deck do Drytron things more often, which I'm okay with.
I could also see that because a lot of Drytron players were on like DPE. That was a relatively popular thing for Drytron players, of course. That maybe they're, because they took away Verte, they're giving him back Benton. I don't know. I'm not a fan of the deck anymore, but I could see it play in other decks. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. And then Tenki, Tri-Brigade players rejoice, but also cry because you lost your best boss monster now. Tenki going to 2 increases the consistency. I could see this deck shifting more to kind of what it was before, with a little bit like the Lyrilusk version, because there is a Link 1 that's a Beast Warrior, like relatively generic, coming out in Power of the Elements. I could see Tenki for that just in the future. Again, Verte leaving means that the Albaz version is significantly brickier. It doesn't really do a whole lot. So you get the +1 off of like Recourier for the free discard, anything like that. But you really can't play the fusions, because if you're playing like branded fusion, then you lock yourself out of your entire extra deck for the turn. Besides, of course, Mirror Jade. And really the only reason was for the Verte Anaconda interaction, I feel like.
Yeah, shout out my boy Doug. I know he's happy about this one.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I like Tri-Brigade. I'm glad to see that Tenki's at 2. I also like Zodiac, of course, but I don't really see Tri-Brigade coming back. It's because everything else.
It's a little bump for them, but I still don't think Tri-Brigade's exceptional in the format at all. On a general principle, I like consistency cards to be in higher numbers, and then just balance the pool of cards they search a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see more copies of Tenki. I like the game when it's consistent.
I agree. And speaking of consistency, we have Desires back to 2. So Desires went to 1 in February, and most of OzoneTCG thought that we were like, well, that's it. Like Desires going to stay at 1 forever. Apparently not. They Konami of America and Europe likes to put that card back, maybe. But it's at 2 now. Apparently 2 Desires was correct, maybe.
Man, all I know is I like Desires. I want to draw that card, but if that card resolves against me, I'm gonna cry. So that card should be banned.
Yeah, there was no way it should have been. It should have gone back to 2. Definitely should have gone to 0. Because
something we missed. Called by the Grave. That should be banned.
Oh yeah.
That
was
card's
definitely
crazy.
something. I agree. Yep.
For me, Desires being an unsearchable power card, the game either needs to decide that it's too powerful and put it at 0, or put it back to 3 so that decks can be built around it, and the card's activation can be expected and respected. I'm in favor of the card generally, but I understand that there are some very potent decks that just play all 3 ofs because that's how they were designed, and then they're just better when they draw Desires.
Yeah.
Happy to see it come back. If they decide in the future it needs to be banned, fine, but I just hope they don't revert back to the either a 2 of or a 1 of. I think those just make the game... They worsen the problem of variance, because when they're drawn, they just kind of tilt games a little too far. So happy to see it back. But
I feel like this is a very, very, very minor and maybe a little bit of a reach, a buff to Sword Soul, because they lost Fibrax. My fellow Sword Soul players, not necessarily crying because there's nothing that's been hit in the deck directly, thankfully, at least not yet. But there is the Desires as a consolation prize.
yeah, that was a very important hit, losing the Auroradon for Sword Soul. It's gonna cause some issues.
Yeah.
But, yep.
We'll talk about that in a future video, because Peter and I are going to theory some Sword Soul eventually. And then Trickstar Light Stage to 2. This card probably should have been at 3 for a while. Yeah, just a nice +1.
Yeah, this card should definitely be at 3 now that Verte's banned, because Light Stage was a 1-card Verte at one point.
Yep.
And this is basically like agent support. It searches fairies, so I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, a couple things at play here. Links being weaker, with Verte being, like you said, with Verte being banned, links are weaker. This becomes more acceptable in higher numbers. Helps people go second by locking back row, so it's always been a pretty solid card. Core Bane's legal, so yeah, I generally like this. Promotes more gameplay.
Yep, I agree. Overall, pretty good. And then, last but not least, the Unlimited section. This is probably the easiest section to go through. Unlimited is Night Assailant. Pretty easy. It has an errata, so it can't target itself. To return to the hand, it should have been at 3 once the OCG had that, whatever. Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, is at 3. It was at 1, and it has been at 1 for a while, especially once Lynx were introduced into the game, and Fibrax came into the game. They put Trish to 1. Now it's at 3. Stalio, I think this is fine too. Same with Salamangreat Circle. I don't think
Gazelle, playing 1 anyway.
Yeah, I don't think Gazelle should be at 3, but it's fine that Circle's at 3. Helps play through Nibiru as well, and I think Circle matters more than Gazelle being at 3. It's better just to have that ability to prevent monsters from affecting your Salamangreat card. And then Hero lives as well. I know we had Hero, I think some of the new cards in Ghosts 2. Again, this card probably could have been at 3 for a while. Same with Scapegoat. These cards are doing nothing. Probably won't be doing anything at 3. Yeah. Always been a complaint, but this card is too slow. Both of them are. I mean, Heroes can do explosive plays. They just don't do enough for the risks that you run playing that deck.
Hey, but don't summon Darklaw against me, because I'll be mad.
Yeah, true. That card is kind of crazy still, but I mean, that's kind of the crutch that Heroes have now. It's just a walking D-fissure.
Three hero lives might see it splashed elsewhere. Auroradon actually being banned is important for this because hero lives in high numbers is a fantastic extender or starter for Assault decks that were generally abusing Fiber Auroradon. So this becomes a little more tolerable. Still a pretty powerful card. Stalio is fine. 1 and 3 is pretty close and effectiveness for that card. Circle to 3 I like, just making more decks playable. Trishula surprised me a bit because it's one of those types of cards that people generally don't mind being at 1 because anybody who's making more than 1 copy of it is generally doing something evil. Yeah. So
like
we'll
evil,
see if they
anyway. Or you're probably resolving your combo anyway. I think it's fine that it's a 3/2.
We'll see. It's a card that can be abused, but it might not matter. So
with Auroradon gone, it really depends. But for right now, in what we know right now, I think it's okay. We'll just have to see. But those were the, of course, bans, limits, semi-limits, unlimited. I think moving forward, we're gonna have to see what kind of decks there are. There were a lot of discussions going on. I think we mentioned Sword Soul, Fluwandereeze, no particular order. Sword Soul, Fluwandereeze, like P.U.N.K decks with Therion mixed in. What else was there that was
Fusion Pile
potential? Alas, how could I forget? So we'll probably see those decks. I'm not sure which one will be consistently the best deck. I just, as a very rough analysis of the format, it seems like Branded will probably be the deck to beat. Maybe behind, and then maybe like Punks or Sword Soul following, and then Adventure, or the Adventure being the second best deck, Sword Soul or Punks following, and then Fluwandereeze, anything like that. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell right now, especially because we have a bunch of national tournaments in Europe coming up this weekend and next weekend, and then of course, next weekend we have YCS Hartford. So we'll see that played, and then it's mostly bare for a couple weeks after, I believe, and then we have like Tactical Masters coming out, new Legendary Duelists with some of the Marincess support and Shark support. I'm just curious to see how those are going to change. I don't think most of Tactical Masters will matter, besides like Mr. Ruins with this list. But I guess we'll just have to kind of see. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of theory going on just because there's so many products coming out.
Mr. Rune coming around with Mystic Minds being legal has worrisome potential because it can accelerate the pace towards the deck out win condition. So we'll see if that comes to pass. But yeah, Branded definitely the deck to beat. Brave losing its biggest
one card
with Prankids being gone. I guess we'll see it be shifting more to synchro stuff. DPE being gone means that the back row decks are going to have an easier time doing their thing. There are still 3 skill drain. So we'll see if people try to adapt Eldritch decks to combat the fusion decks.
Yeah, especially
but we got my boy
Verte is gone, because now the Cyber Gadget Eldritch, which was definitely the more popular version of the deck, is not unplayable, but you don't really do anything with it.
Not with Cyber's cards.
Yeah. So kind of unfortunate, but this is our Nats format. I guess we'll just continue to see how it plays out. Again, I don't really know how much the format will be innovated. I know we will see a lot of differences in the way branded decks are built because branded Banishment, the new normal trap card from Dimension Force, is going to be insane. It's effectively Super Poly for the deck. But that's going to make branded mirrors a lot more difficult to play and a lot more psychologically intense. They were already like kind of that way right now, but it's going to be like difficult to play. You may even go into time with the mirror, just the way that it works now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, card is quite ruinous for mirrors.
Yeah, I think I don't know if there were any other closing thoughts. Anything else that we may have missed? I can't think of anything else that really was like glaringly probably should have been banned that we didn't discuss.
Things that can come off the list include True Draco Face Off or Draco Face Off.
Yeah.
Flush Fire could probably come back. Astrograph can probably come back in larger numbers. I don't think anyone's really scared of Pendulum.
No.
As long as Electromite's banned.
Yeah, I think so long as that card stays banned, which like Astrograph and Electromite can't exist in the same format, they're fine. Like they're just not doing anything. Like I don't see them doing anything. Even beyond the Pendulum, it's a very good support card, but it is not Electromite, and it never will be. That's probably what Electromite should have been first, is just beyond the Pendulum. But it's nice to see that they have something going for them, even if it is basically a cheese lock. We may see something like Nibiru played a lot more, at least until Power of the Elements, just to kind of counter these Pendulum decks, or any other decks right now, even though that something like Nibiru is kind of bad against branded. Totally depends on how, I feel like how P.U.N.K, Therion, anything like that is built, Adventure's built, and Sword Soul continues to be built.
I wanted some changes to branded on the list, not for actual branded cards, but cards they play to make the games a little more, both more playable and reduce their power a bit. I didn't think we were going to keep 3 copies of Super Poly or 3 copies of D-Barrier, the latter being less likely, but Dimensional Barrier is an extremely abusive card in any format where it's relevant. Lingering Floodgates are very hard to interact with in this game. I really wanted it to go. Super Poly being a 3 is pretty incredible for branded. They're still getting away with extraordinarily low defensive card counts because they just have such high odds of simplifying the game state in their favor with a card like Super Poly, and it makes the mirrors pretty hard to stomach. So I was surprised we kept those cards.
Yeah, any format where there are powerful fusions that are generic, and the last time that it happened was Shadal. Before then, I don't even know, it was years before, but Shadal having 3 Super Poly made Duelist Alliance at the beginning of it pretty intolerable until that October 2014 ban list, right before Cleaforts came out. Now it feels kind of similar, where it's basically, it's very similar to that. Obviously, we don't have the equivalent of Burning Abyss quite, or Teller Knights, but it feels like there are some very glaring issues, and Super Poly then is like Super Poly now, or vice versa. Same with like Scythe. Scythe feels like having triple Super Poly and dual Alliance release at all. It feels very overwhelming that that card is still legal, but we may still see lower representation because the Scythe lock combo kind of started to fall off at the end of the format. I think mainly because of branded just being so highly represented, because it is cheap, relatively.
Yep, could definitely happen. The branded decks will have to adapt to see if they can catch anyone with Super Poly in the process of trying to Scythe them.
Yeah.
Now the DPE is gone.
I think D-Barrier is basically mandatory now, because it's going to hit. It may hit Adventure. It'll definitely hit the P.U.N.K Therion decks. It'll definitely hit Sword Soul. Obviously, it's dead versus Fluwanderees, but that's a whole nother discussion about that deck and its place in the format. But
that's why we got a side deck, bro.
Yeah, that's for another day. I think Token Collector still stays in the side deck as a 3 of. It's the format's going to be very similar to what it was at the end of the previous format. Now it's just a bunch of power cards we have to play. I think every deck has to play them now.
Yep.
Yeah. There's something else I wanted to say. Oh, it's interesting that this ban list was effective the day that it was released. That doesn't happen like at
Yeah, they've
all.
never done that before, right?
They've done it, I think, previously, but it's been years at least. Like, usually we have at least a week, again, with Nationals in Europe going on, more regional events, PlayStation 5 events, case tournaments. It is very weird that they did that. I don't know why they just randomly had a ban list, and it's on a Tuesday. Usually it's like Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, generally speaking, that there's a new list. I don't know why they didn't just release it yesterday. Maybe it wasn't finalized. Who knows? That's just I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it reeks of last-minute decision-making, and it's very unfortunate for the European countries that have their nationals this weekend. Like, that is not a lot of prep time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Even a week of between a ban list reveal and its effective date is still not a whole lot of time, because it's still on top of working your job if you're working and you're not a student or anything, and it's still on top of traveling, making sure you're getting to the event on time. It is going to be difficult and testing because you still have to test basically like a new format. A lot of similarities, of course, but it's just like now we're going to a whole new way to think about the current decks. Not a lot of time, kind of sucks.
For sure.
So, but that is our analysis of this. Just basic thoughts on it. I mean, that's kind of just the how it is. It's going to be right now. It's going to be really rough starting out as it is for most formats whenever a new list is revealed. But we'll probably be seeing a lot of locals. There are a bunch of, like I said, case tournaments and like PlayStation 5 tournaments over the weekend. Different areas, a bunch of regionals coming up this week and next weekend. So we'll probably see a lot of experimentation with this format and just to see with Dimension Force's legality kind of what happens. And then by the time that Tackle Masters is out, then we'll see more of a solid metagame for the NAWCQ, I feel like.
Yep, sounds right.
Alrighty guys, well, this is our analysis. Take a look at our Sword Soul videos and some of the Dimension Force deck profiles we'll have. If you guys want to buy cards for a deck, you can use our TCG Player affiliate link. Link in the description, of course. It helps us out, and it does it makes sure that you're buying cards from the right sellers, and make sure that you get the quality from TCG Player. But this is Eric, Peter, and Lyric with OzoneTCG. We will see you guys in the next one.